You know that person who cancels group plans but shows up when you need them, who remembers what you said 3 months ago in a quiet conversation, who texts back at 2 in the morning when everyone else is asleep. They skip the parties. They duck out early from happy hour. And somehow they are the ones you call when life gets real. Why do people who avoid big groups end up being your most reliable friend? What makes one person in a coffee shop more valuable than 50 at a bar? And what does science actually say about the depth that shows up when the crowd disappears? Most people think great friends are the ones who show up everywhere, the life of the party, the connector. But there's a quieter pattern playing out. A 2022 study from BMC Public Health documented that friendship quality matters significantly more than friendship quantity for adolescent mental well-being. Not how many, how deep. The researchers analyzed data from studies published between 2000 and 22. They found that companionship, trust, closeness, and intimacy form the core of friendship quality. And these qualities predicted life satisfaction far more powerfully than the size of someone's social circle. When you dig into the University of California, Santa Cruz research from 2007, you find something striking. 66 pairs of same-sex college friends. Researchers analyzed how personality shaped friendship dynamics. Friends who were both introverted showed distinct patterns. More orderly turn-taking during storytelling, more careful listening. More space for each person to speak. The extroverted pairs talked over each other constantly, but the introverted pairs treated conversation like a careful exchange. Each person got their moment. Each story got its time. A 2021 study from 949 Canadians published in Health Psychology Open revealed that social support from friends correlated more strongly with happiness for people with low extroversion. For introverts, a single strong friendship delivered more well-being benefit than multiple shallow connections. The correlation was significant at a p-value less than 0.001. The math does not lie. One good friend beats 10 casual acquaintances when you are wired for depth. If you value documented friendship research and psychological science like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from peer-reviewed journals including the 2007 study published in PMC titled I'm Outgoing and She's Reserved, The Reciprocal Dynamics of Personality and Close Friendships in Young Adulthood, which examined 66 friendship pairs over structured interviews and analyzed interaction patterns between introverted and extroverted dyads. We also drew from the 2023 Systematic Review Association between Friendship Quality and Subjective Well-Being among Adolescents published in BMC Public Health, which synthesized data from 5 databases covering studies from January 2000 to August 2022. Now back to the information. People who prefer one-on-one interactions process social energy differently, not better or worse. Differently. Research from the anterior cingulate cortex studies shows what happens in the brain during social monitoring. This brain region maintains heightened activity during interactions. For people with higher sensitivity to stimulation, this creates elevated arousal faster. A 2023 review published in Stat Pearls documented that social interactions trigger increased cortisol production. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone simultaneously. Dopamine and norepinephrine deplete more rapidly during sustained social engagement. These are the neurotransmitters crucial for attention and social stamina. Think of it like a battery. Some people have larger batteries. Some recharge through socializing, others drain faster and recharge alone. A Psych Central article from June 2021, medically reviewed by clinical psychologist Vara Saripalli, noted that research estimates social interactions extending over 3 hours can lead to post-socializing fatigue for some people. 3 hours. That is one long dinner, one extended happy hour, one afternoon wedding reception. After that mark, certain brains start hitting red. Here's where it gets interesting for friendship quality. When someone has limited social energy, they become selective. They cannot afford to waste it. A study from the University of Central Florida, published in the International Journal of Listening in 2013, tested 115 participants with trained Confederates. Participants received 3 types of responses: active listening, simple acknowledgement, or advice. The results showed participants who received active listening responses felt significantly more understood than those receiving acknowledgement or advice. The effect held across conversational satisfaction measures. When you only have so much social fuel, you learn to use it where it counts. You learn to listen because you cannot afford empty chatter. You learn to ask real questions because small talk feels like throwing energy into a void. The UCLA Anderson research from November 2025, published in the Anderson Review, examined what the researchers called the listening gap. Speakers assume they are heard, but often they are not. The study showed that when listeners feign attentiveness through nodding, eye contact, and verbal cues like mm-hmm and uh-huh, speakers cannot tell the difference between genuine engagement and performance. Only when audio was garbled at 75% did speakers notice a drop in listening quality. This reveals something critical. Group settings make performance easier. You can nod, you can make sounds, you can look engaged while mentally checking out, but one-on-one strips that away. There is nowhere to hide, no crowd to blend into, no other conversation to shift toward. You are either present or you're not, and the other person knows. A 2022 study from Leiden University, published in Child Development Perspectives, examined brain imaging research on friendships. High-quality friendships activated the medial prefrontal cortex. This region handles self-referential processing and comparing yourself to others. Stronger cortical thinning in this area correlated with increasing friendship quality over time. Translation: deep friendships literally reshape your brain. They force you to integrate perspectives, to see yourself through another person's eyes, to hold space for someone else's reality while maintaining your own. This neural work happens most intensely in one-on-one settings. No dilution. No distraction. Just two brains engaging fully. When you prefer one-on-one time, you develop a specific skill set: patience, the ability to sit in silence without filling it, the capacity to ask a follow-up question instead of pivoting to your own story. Research from a 2023 study on listening and responsiveness, published in Current Opinion in Psychology, documented that high-quality listening promotes intimacy, trust, and liking. These are facets of relatedness need satisfaction from self-determination theory. The study found that genuine listening creates a relational space free from judgment. This space allows speakers to disclose authentically. And authentic disclosure builds the intimacy that transforms acquaintances into friends. But here's the catch: genuine listening cannot be faked for long. A 2022 study from the Social and Personality Psychology Compass noted that listeners must be genuine to be perceived as good listeners. Speakers detect non-genuine listeners. They respond poorly. You cannot automate connection. You cannot script depth. You either show up fully or the relationship stays surface. Group settings create what researchers call social energy depletion at accelerated rates. A 2025 article from Therapy Group of DC, drawing on behavioral psychology research, explained that group interactions require constant cognitive shifting. You track multiple speakers. You monitor group dynamics. You manage when to speak and when to stay quiet. You read multiple faces for reactions. Your brain juggles all these inputs simultaneously. The cognitive load becomes overwhelming. Cognitive load theory, developed by John Sweller in the late 1980s, describes how working memory has limited capacity. A 2020 review from Current Directions in Psychological Science confirmed that environmental stimuli deplete working memory resources. In group settings, you are not just processing one person, you are processing 5, 10, 20 people, the noise, the competing conversations, the social hierarchy, who is in, who is out, who is saying what to whom. It exhausts the system. And when the system exhausts, connection quality drops. One-on-one interactions reduce this load dramatically. You track one face, one voice, one set of reactions. Your brain can dedicate resources to actual understanding instead of just managing inputs. A study from 949 participants published in Health Psychology Open in 2023 found that lower social loneliness and higher social support from friends correlated more strongly with happiness for people with low extroversion than for high extroversion. The p-value was less than 0.001 for social loneliness, less than 0.001 for friend support, 0.007 for family support. The numbers tell a story. For some people, quality connections are not a nice to have, they are the primary pathway to well-being. But what about trust? How does preference for one-on-one time affect the trust you build? A 2025 study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships examined how adolescents and young adults form trusting friendships. The researchers interviewed participants about their experiences building trust. They found that trust develops through vulnerability. You share something risky, the other person responds with care. The cycle repeats. Each successful cycle deepens the trust. Each failed cycle damages it. In group settings, vulnerability becomes complicated. Who hears what you share? Who might repeat it? Who is judging as you speak? The risk multiplies with each additional person. But in one-on-one conversations, the risk calculus simplifies. One person, one response. Clear feedback. If they honor your vulnerability, you trust them more. If they violate it, you know exactly who did it. No ambiguity. no wondering which person in the group spread your secret, just clear accountability. The research on authenticity and peer relationships reveals more. A study from Montclair State University examined authenticity, vulnerability, and shame in peer relationships among young adults living with mood and anxiety disorders. Participants described how they decided what to share with friends, and the central theme was fear of judgment, fear of being seen as too much, too broken, too different. This fear intensified in group settings where multiple people could form negative opinions simultaneously. But in one-on-one conversations, participants reported feeling safer, easier to test the waters with one person. Easier to gauge if someone could handle their reality. The stakes felt lower, even though the depth was higher. Here is what changes when someone prefers one-on-one time. They stop performing. Groups reward performance, the funny comment, the clever comeback, the ability to entertain, but one-on-one rewards presence, showing up tired, showing up confused, showing up exactly as you are without the armor of social performance. A 2024 study published in Applied Family Therapy Journal examined online identity management and emotional transparency. Researchers found that emotional transparency predicts relational closeness, not curated perfection. Actual transparency. When you manage your image too carefully, trying to appear competent or desirable, you suppress emotional honesty, and suppressed honesty prevents closeness. People who prefer one-on-one time often report less energy for image management. In a group, you might maintain the performance, but alone with one person, the facade cracks, and through those cracks, real connection grows. Friendship quality research consistently points to specific features. A systematic review from February 2023, published in Frontiers in Psychology, analyzed 38 studies on adult friendship and well-being between 2000 and 2019. The review found that friendship quality and socializing with friends predict well-being levels. Number of friends showed weaker correlation. The features that mattered most were companionship, intimacy, and reliable alliance. Companionship is about shared experience. Intimacy is about emotional closeness. Reliable alliance is about knowing someone has your back. All three develop best in sustained, focused interaction, not split across dozens of people, not diluted by group dynamics, concentrated in the space between two people who choose to show up for each other repeatedly. The phenomenon researchers call social battery drain happens faster in groups for a specific reason. Multiple stimuli compete for attention. A 2024 article from Personality Spark, citing research by Dr. Susan Cain on stimulus sensitivity, explained that introverts experience energy depletion more rapidly during high interaction intensity situations. They require restorative solitude and quiet time to maintain emotional well-being. But even extroverts experience social exhaustion in certain contexts. The key variable is whether the interaction feels energizing or depleting, and that depends partly on whether you can actually connect or just manage social traffic. In groups, you manage traffic. Who gets to speak? When to laugh? How to navigate conflicting opinions? Whether to mediate tension or ignore it. Your attention fragments across multiple priorities. In one-on-one settings, traffic disappears. You connect or you do not. The simplicity creates space for depth. A 2022 study from Westchester University examining dyadic communication found that question asking during getting acquainted interactions makes speakers feel listened to and perceive the asker as responsive. But the quality of questions matters more than quantity. Superficial questions in rapid-fire sequence feel like interrogation. Thoughtful questions with space for full answers feel like genuine interest. Group settings push toward rapid fire. Too many people waiting, too many topics competing. One-on-one allows the slower pace where real questions live. Consider what happens with memory. When you spend 1 hour with one person, you remember that conversation. Details stick. You recall what they said about their job stress, their family situation, their weird dream last Tuesday. When you spend 1 hour with 10 people, each person gets 6 minutes, maybe less, after accounting for setup, transitions, group laughter, side conversations. 6 minutes is not enough for memory consolidation. You might remember one funny story, maybe one major life update, but the texture disappears, the nuance vanishes. You walked away entertained but not connected, and 6 weeks later, you cannot remember who said what. A University of Minnesota study examining friendship quality and psychological well-being from 2016 documented that perceived social support mediates the link between friendship quality and well-being. Social support from friends fully mediated the relationship between security, a friendship quality subscale, and psychological well-being. You need to feel secure to experience well-being benefits from friendship. And security develops through consistency, through someone showing up repeatedly, through building a track record of reliability. That track record builds faster and stronger in one-on-one contexts. You see the person more clearly. You know their patterns. You recognize when something is off. You can offer support precisely because you paid attention when it was just the two of you. The data on introversion and friendship reveals patterns. A study from the International Journal of Philosophical Studies, examining aloof, introverted personality traits, found a significant negative correlation between introversion and emotional self-disclosure. Correlation of negative 0.23 with p less than 0.001. Translation: more introverted people typically share emotions less freely, but when they do share, it is intentional. They choose carefully who receives their trust. This selectivity creates deeper bonds with fewer people. They invest heavily in relationships that matter. They divest from relationships that drain without return. The math works differently, but the outcome is better. Friends, more reliable, more present, more capable of showing up when things get hard. And now factor in the performance cost. Extroverted social settings reward certain behaviors, charisma, quick wit, comfort with attention. If those are not your natural strengths, every group interaction becomes an acting job. You study the role, you deliver the lines, you manage your energy to sustain the performance. This is exhausting work, and it pulls resources away from actual connection. A 2025 article on scheduling for introverts from myshift.com discussed the social battery concept in workplace contexts. The article noted that different activities deplete social energy at varying speeds. Customer-facing roles drain faster. High stimulation environments accelerate depletion. Recovery requires designated time away from social demands. When someone operates in this energy economy, they cannot afford to waste battery on performances that go nowhere. They save energy for interactions that matter, for friendships that give back as much as they take. This selectivity makes them better friends. They show up when it counts because they did not blow their energy on meaningless socializing. The phenomenon of listening quality ties directly to setting size. Active listening research from NCBI's StatPearls database, updated September 2023 DOS, defines active listening as full engagement with the speaker, appropriate body movement, facial expressions matching the content, eye contact, minimum verbal encouragement, attentive silence, reflecting back, feelings and content, summarizing intellectually. These behaviors require significant cognitive resources. In group settings, you cannot sustain this level of attention for multiple people simultaneously. The brain does not work that way. You shift between people, offering partial attention to many. In one-on-one settings, you can dedicate full resources to one person. They feel the difference. They feel heard. And feeling heard is the foundation of feeling valued, of feeling like you matter to someone, of building the friendship that lasts through hard times. Research from social psychology on communal coping reveals more. A 2009 study examining how extroverted and introverted friends communally coped with being recorded found distinct patterns. 50 pairs of same-sex college friends participated. Introverted dyads engaged in more extensive onstage maneuvers, research talk, soothing, joking attributed to nervousness. They used the situation as a conversational resource. They helped each other navigate discomfort. Extroverted dyads diverted quickly. They did not sit with awkwardness. They moved past it. Neither approach is wrong, but the introverted pattern reveals something about how they handle shared problems. They talk it through. They acknowledge difficulty together. They create strategies as a unit. This collaborative problem-solving translates to friendship. When life gets hard, they do not run. They sit with you in the hard part. They help you think it through. What about the claim that group friends cannot go deep? The research is clear. Groups are not inherently shallow, but they face structural barriers to depth. A study from 2022 on adolescent friendship from BMC Public Health noted that friendship quality encompasses multiple dimensions: intimacy, trust, conflict resolution, help, and support. Each dimension requires time and attention. And when attention divides across many people, each dimension receives less investment. It is simple math. 10 friends receiving equal attention each get 10% of your friendship capacity. 2 friends each get 50%. The 50% friends know you better. They have more shared history. They have seen you in more contexts. They can offer more tailored support because they actually know what you need. Consider conflict. Conflict in groups gets complicated fast. Sides form. Loyalties split. Resolution requires managing multiple relationships simultaneously. A study from Sage Publications in 2020 on friendship characteristics and well-being examined how Aristotle's 3 friendship types, utility, pleasure, and virtue, relate to modern well-being measures. Virtue friendships, characterized by mutual growth and moral support, showed strongest correlation with eudaimonic well-being. That is, well-being rooted in meaning and personal growth. Virtue friendships require honesty, including honest conflict. But honest conflict in groups risks damaging multiple relationships at once. In one-on-one friendships, you can address problems directly. Clear conflict, clear resolution, no collateral damage to other relationships. The safety of this simplicity allows virtue friendships to develop more easily. The neuroscience backs up the behavioral patterns. Research on brain structure from an 8 to 25-year-old sample published in Child Development Perspectives found that friendship quality correlates with cortical changes in the medial prefrontal cortex. This region handles perspective taking, understanding another person's mental states, integrating their viewpoint with yours. These neural processes require sustained engagement. Brief interactions do not trigger the same level of neural adaptation. Deep conversations that challenge your perspective, that force you to hold complexity, that make you reconsider your assumptions, create the structural changes. And those conversations happen most naturally one-on-one. No pressure to perform for others, no concern about how vulnerable you appear to multiple people, just two people willing to go to uncomfortable places together. The trust formation research is decisive. A 2025 study from Sage Publications examined how trust-based friendships form from adolescence to adulthood. The trust sequence model proposes that people assess trustworthiness, decide to trust us, and take the vulnerable leap of trusting behavior. But the study found variation in how people navigate this sequence. Some jump quickly, others test slowly over time. The key finding was that successful trust cycles involve vulnerability followed by appropriate response. Share something risky, receive care in return. Trust deepens. But if vulnerability meets judgment or betrayal, trust shatters. In groups, testing trust becomes difficult. Too many variables, too many people who might respond poorly. In one-on-one friendships, you can test incrementally, small vulnerability, observe response, slightly larger vulnerability, observe again. Build confidence through repeated success. This graduated approach works better for people who need to build trust carefully. And careful trust often becomes the strongest trust, because it was tested thoroughly before being granted fully. Now, consider the energy management piece. A 2024 article from Reframe discussing neuroscience-based approaches to introversion noted that the anterior cingulate cortex maintains elevated activity during social monitoring. This creates arousal. For sensitive systems, that arousal overwhelms quickly. It triggers cortisol release. It depletes dopamine and norepinephrine. These biochemical changes are not optional. They are automatic responses to stimulation. When your system responds this way, managing social energy becomes survival, not preference, not antisocial behavior, biological necessity. People who navigate this reality learn to be strategic. They learn that quality matters more than quantity. They learn that 2 hours with one good friend beats 8 hours at a party where they spend the whole time managing their nervous system. This is not antisocial. This is self-preservation that happens to create the conditions for better friendship. The phenomenon of being yourself shows up repeatedly in research. A study on authenticity in peer relationships from young adults with mood and anxiety disorders found that participants feared being too much. They worried about overwhelming friends with their problems. In groups, this fear intensified. Multiple people to potentially alienate, multiple opinions to manage, but with individual friends, participants reported more willingness to be honest, to say they were struggling, to ask for help. The relationship could handle weight because both people chose to bear it together. Groups dilute responsibility. Who is responsible for supporting you when 12 people know you're struggling? Maybe all of them a little. Maybe none of them fully. In one-on-one friendship, responsibility is clear. This person asked me for support. I can show up or not. The clarity creates accountability, and accountability creates reliability. Let us talk numbers. A 2023 study from 949 participants in the Canadian Social Connect survey found that people with low extroversion showed stronger correlation between perceived social support from friends and subjective happiness compared to high extroversion individuals. The correlation was significant at 0.001, 0.007 for family support, less than 0.001 for social loneliness. These are robust statistical relationships. They tell us that for a large portion of the population, the pathway to happiness runs through deep connections more than wide networks. Ignoring this reality in favor of social expectations that everyone should want big friend groups causes harm. It pushes people toward relationship structures that do not serve their well-being. It makes them feel deficient for needing what actually helps them thrive. The listening research from UCLA Anderson, published in November 2025, documented a critical finding. Speakers cannot tell when they are not being heard if the listener performs attention correctly. Nodding works. Works. Eye contact works. Speakers felt equally engaged when listeners could hear 100% of content versus only 25%. Only at 75% garbling did speakers notice degradation. This has massive implications for friendship. In groups, you can fake attention and get away with it. But faking attention does not build connection. It builds the illusion of connection, and illusions collapse under stress. When you really need that friend, you discover they never actually listened. They performed listening. The difference becomes painfully clear. People who prefer one-on-one time are harder to fool. They notice when you check out. They feel the difference between genuine engagement and polite performance. This means they also offer genuine engagement more consistently. They know what real listening feels like. They provide it. What about loyalty? How does one-on-one preference affect who sticks around? Research from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, examining friendship across emerging to established adulthood, found that intimacy and reliable alliance predict well-being. Reliable alliance is the sense that someone has your back, that they will show up in crisis, that they are not just fair-weather friends. Groups make reliable alliance complicated. Who do you call at 3 a.m? Who will drive 4 hours to get you? In large friend groups, the responsibility diffuses. Someone else will probably help, but probably is not reliability. In close one-on-one friendships, the answer is clear. This person. They will show up because we have that kind of friendship. The investment is mutual, the commitment is explicit, not through formal agreement, but through repeated demonstration. And demonstrated reliability is the only kind that matters when you actually need help. The cognitive load research explains why groups feel exhausting. A 2024 study on cognitive load theory from educational psychology research confirmed that working memory has severe capacity limits. Information processing requires cognitive resources. When environmental stimuli increase, cognitive load increases, multiple conversations, background noise, visual complexity, social monitoring of multiple faces, all of these add load. The brain cannot process everything. It starts dropping data, missing comments, losing track of who said what, failing to encode memories properly. This is not a character flaw. This is cognitive architecture hitting limits, and when you operate at cognitive capacity limits, you cannot connect deeply. You survive the interaction. You do not transform through it. One-on-one interactions keep cognitive load manageable. You can actually think while talking. You can process meaning, not just words. You can remember the conversation tomorrow because your brain had resources to encode it properly. Consider what makes someone good in a crisis. When things fall apart, who do you want? The person who knows 50 people or the person who knows you? Research from the Intimate Introvert study examining self-disclosure found that even one high-quality friendship provides noteworthy psychological benefits. You do not need many. You need one person who gets you, who remembers your family situation, who knows your triggers, who understands your history. This knowledge comes from time, from attention, from choosing to know someone fully instead of knowing many people partially. When crisis hits, partial knowledge is useless. You need someone who can see the full picture, who can say, "This is not like you. Something is really wrong." Who can intervene effectively because they actually know what effective intervention looks like for you specifically. The research on self-determination theory ties this together. A 2022 study from the Social and Personality Psychology Compass examining listening and motivation found that high-quality listening satisfies basic psychological needs: autonomy, relatedness, possibly competence. When someone listens well, you feel autonomous. They are not trying to fix you or change you. They let you be yourself. You feel related, connected, understood. You might feel competent, capable of articulating your experience. These needs are not luxuries, and they are requirements for well-being. And one-on-one settings create optimal conditions for need satisfaction through listening. The listener has cognitive resources available. The speaker has time to fully express themselves. The interaction moves at a pace that allows actual processing. Everyone leaves feeling more connected than they entered. This is rare in groups, common in good one-on-one friendships. What about the criticism that one-on-one people are selfish, that they are not willing to engage with community? The data contradicts this narrative. People who invest deeply in few friendships often contribute significantly to those friends' communities. They show up for your events even though they do not love crowds. They support causes you care about. They engage with your other friends when needed. They are not antisocial. They are selectively social. And selective socializing based on energy management is not selfishness. It is sustainable relationship building. Burning yourself out trying to be everywhere for everyone helps no one. Having energy, reserves to show up fully when it matters, helps the people you actually commit to supporting. The authenticity research reveals a pattern. A 2024 article on encouraging authenticity in friendships noted that authentic relationships are characterized by trust, emotional intimacy, and genuine support. You share your true self without fear of judgment. This level of authenticity requires safety, psychological safety, the sense that vulnerability will not be weaponized, that difference will not be punished, that imperfection will not lead to rejection. Building this safety takes time. It takes testing. It takes repeated experiences of sharing something real and receiving care instead of criticism. Groups make this testing risky, high exposure. Many potential critics. One-on-one settings reduce risk, test with one person. Build safety incrementally. Expand authenticity as earned. The brain imaging research on friendship from Leiden University documented specific neural correlates of friendship quality. The study examined 8 to 25-year-olds. Higher friendship quality correlated with changes in the medial prefrontal cortex. This region specializes in processing mental states related to self and others. The structural changes suggest that quality friendships actually reshape how your brain processes social information. They make you better at perspective taking, better at empathy, better at holding complexity. These neural changes require sustained, deep engagement. Brief interactions do not trigger equivalent neural adaptation. You need hours of conversation, repeated experiences of trying to understand someone else's reality, the cognitive effort of reconciling their perspective with yours. This happens most naturally in extended one-on-one time, no interruptions, no pivoting to someone else's perspective before fully understanding the first person's view. The research on social exhaustion from Harvard Health, published November 2018, emphasized that introverts often expend energy in social situations, while extroverts gain energy. This is not about whether you like people. It is about what interactions cost you neurologically. When every social encounter depletes your resources, you become strategic about where to invest. You choose interactions that give something back, that leave you feeling more connected, not more exhausted. This selectivity produces better friendships because you only maintain relationships that are mutually beneficial, relationships where both people invest, where both people care, where the energy exchange feels balanced even if the social energy economics differ. Let us address the elephant in the room. What about people who prefer groups because one-on-one feels too intense? This is valid. Some people find one-on-one overwhelming, too much attention, too much pressure to fill silence, too much intimacy too fast. These people are not worse friends. They are different friends. They offer different strengths, group coordination, social connection, broader networks. The argument is not that one approach is universally better. The argument is that for people seeking depth, reliability, and authentic connection, one-on-one oriented friends typically deliver those qualities more consistently. This is a matching problem, not a hierarchy. Different people need different relationship styles. Understanding which style serves your needs helps you build satisfying friendships instead of forcing yourself into relationship patterns that do not work for you. The data on friendship and well-being from the Systematic Review and Frontiers in Psychology, examining adult friendship between 2000 and 2019, found that friendship quality consistently predicted well-being across studies. Number of friends showed inconsistent relationships with well-being, sometimes positive, sometimes no relationship, sometimes negative when it reflected shallow overextension. Quality predicted well-being reliably. This pattern held across cultures, across age ranges, across measurement methods. The evidence is not ambiguous. Deep connections matter more than wide networks for psychological well-being, not for everyone, not for all purposes. But for the significant portion of people who need depth to feel connected, the data is clear. Consider what happens during life transitions, moving cities, changing jobs, going through breakups, during transition. You need people who know you well enough to help you make sense of the chaos. Research from the University of Minnesota on friendship dynamics found that reliable alliance, the perception that a friend will support you, predicts both self-esteem and loneliness levels. Reliable alliance develops through consistency, through proving repeatedly that you will show up. In big friend groups, transitions often lead to losing most connections. The shared context disappears, college ends, the job changes, the friend group disperses, but close one-on-one friends persist through transitions. They do not need the group context to maintain connection. They want to know you, independent of circumstance, and that persistence through transition creates the reliable alliance that buffers against loneliness during hard changes. The neuroscience of social monitoring explains the fatigue factor. Research documenting that the anterior cingulate cortex maintains elevated activity during social interactions reveals why groups exhaust some people. This brain region works over time to track social information. Who is speaking? what group norms apply, where you stand in the hierarchy, what reactions are happening. This monitoring is automatic, not optional. Your brain does it whether you want it to or not. For people with heightened sensitivity, this monitoring becomes overwhelming in groups. Too much input, too many simultaneous calculations, the system overloads. In one-on-one interactions, monitoring drops dramatically. One person to track, one set of norms to navigate. The brain can dedicate resources to understanding instead of just managing inputs. This shift allows genuine connection instead of just social survival. The trust research from adolescence to adulthood published in SAGE publications, 2025, emphasized that trust requires vulnerability. You have to risk being hurt to build trust. You share something personal. You ask for help. You admit weakness. These acts require safety. In groups, calculating safety becomes complex. Who might judge? Who might spread this information? Who can you actually trust in this crowd? The calculation overwhelms the desire to connect. In one-on-one friendships, the calculation simplifies. This one person, have they proven trustworthy? Have past vulnerabilities been met with care? If yes, risk again. If no, do not. Clear decision tree. This simplicity allows trust to develop systematically instead of haphazardly. What about the claim that one-on-one friends are too intense, that they expect too much emotional labor? This happens. Some people mistake one-on-one preference for permission to demand constant availability. But actual research on quality friendships shows mutual respect for boundaries. A Harvard Health article from November 2018 on introvert social engagement noted successful strategies include knowing your boundaries, controlling settings, and focusing on activities instead of pure conversation. Good one-on-one friends respect these boundaries. They understand that deep connection does not require constant contact. It requires genuine presence during contact. The difference matters. Intensity is not about how often you interact. It is about how fully present you are when you do. The cognitive architecture research ties everything together. Working memory capacity limits how much information you can process simultaneously. Cognitive load theory, validated across decades of research, shows that exceeding working memory capacity degrades performance. In social contexts, degraded performance means missed cues, forgotten details, superficial engagement. When you interact one-on-one, you stay within cognitive capacity. You can process deeply. You encode memories properly. You notice subtlety. You respond thoughtfully. These capabilities create the conditions for friendship quality, for trust, for reliable alliance, for intimacy, for all the dimensions that research shows actually predict well-being. Let us revisit a key finding. The 2023 study from BMC Public Health reviewing friendship quality and adolescent well-being examined studies from 5 databases: Medline, Embase, ProQuest, Scopus, PsycInfo. Studies from January 2000 to August 2022. The systematic review confirmed that friendship quality, not quantity, predicts mental well-being, companionship, trust, closeness, intimacy, conflict resolution. These quality markers matter, and these markers develop most reliably in sustained one-on-one interaction, not exclusively, but reliably. The pattern holds across studies, across cultures, across age groups. Quality beats quantity for well-being outcomes. The final piece is sustainability. Maintaining many shallow friendships requires constant energy. Remembering details about many people, managing many separate relationships, attending many events. The overhead cost is high. When life gets demanding, something gives, usually the friendships. But deep one-on-one friendships are sustainable precisely because they require less overhead. You remember details about 2 people better than details about 20? You maintain 2 relationships better than 20, and when life gets demanding, those 2 friends understand. They adapt, they show up differently, but they still show up. This sustainability creates the long-term friendships that matter most. The ones that last decades, the ones that see you through multiple life phases, the ones that become family you chose instead of family you got. Here is what the research actually shows. People who prefer one-on-one interactions develop friendship skills that create depth, active listening, patience, willingness to sit with discomfort, ability to honor silence, genuine curiosity about another person's inner world. These skills translate to reliability, to showing up in crisis, to remembering what matters, to offering support that actually helps, because it is tailored to the specific person needing help. These are the qualities that make someone a better friend. Not more friends, better friend. And better matters more when you need someone at 3 in the morning, when you're facing a decision that terrifies you, when life has knocked you down and you need someone who actually knows you well enough to help you stand back up, The science is clear on what predicts well-being: quality connections, reliable support, authentic relationship, feeling known, feeling valued, feeling like you matter to someone who actually understands you. These come from depth, from time, from choosing to know someone fully instead of knowing many people partially. They come from the conversations that last 3 hours, from the silences that feel comfortable instead of awkward, from the friend who texts, "You okay?" after you have been quiet for 2 days, from the person who knows your patterns well enough to notice when something is off, from the relationship where you do not perform, you just exist, and existing is enough. So, when someone cancels the party but shows up when you are in the emergency room, you're not looking at someone who cannot handle crowds. You are looking at someone who knows how to prioritize, who knows their energy limits, who chooses to invest where it matters, who values the relationship enough to skip the performance and show up for the reality. That is not antisocial. That is not weird. That is not less than the life of the party. That is someone who knows that real connection happens in the margins, in the quiet, in the space between two people who chose to know each other fully, and that choice creates the friendships that last, the ones that transform you, the ones that hold you together when everything else falls apart. The evidence lives in the neuroscience, in the systematic reviews, in the longitudinal studies tracking friendship quality across decades. It lives in the brain imaging showing structural changes from deep connection. It lives in the statistical correlations between quality and well-being that hold across cultures and contexts. It lives in the lived experiences of people who chose depth over breadth and found themselves held by friendships that could actually bear weight. In 2022, researchers at Duke University and the University of Minnesota published findings in developmental psychology examining adult trust in friendship. They interviewed participants about whom they trust with sensitive information. The consistent answer was not the person who knew everyone. It was the person who knew them, who had proven repeatedly that vulnerability would be met with care, who showed up when showing up was inconvenient, who remembered, who paid attention, who chose them specifically instead of having them as one of many. That is the final word the research speaks. One good friend who knows you beats 10 casual friends who know about you. One person you can call at 2 a.m. beats a group chat that goes silent when things get hard. One relationship built on authentic presence beats a dozen relationships built on polite performance. Not for everyone. Not for all circumstances, but for the people who need depth to feel connected. For the people who recharge alone and spend social energy deliberately. For the people who would rather talk to one person for 3 hours than 10 people for 10 minutes each. The path to better friendship is clear. Choose depth. Invest fully. Show up when it matters. Be the friend who remembers, who listens, who sits with discomfort, who honors vulnerability, who proves reliable through action, not just words. Because when life strips away the crowd, when crisis comes and the party ends and you are left with whoever chooses to stay, you will find that the friend who chose one-on-one time, who prioritized knowing you over knowing about you, who built their friendship on presence instead of performance, that friend is still there, still listening, still showing up. Still proving that sometimes one is infinitely more valuable than many, and that math, backed by decades of research across psychology, neuroscience, and social science, is the only friendship math that truly matters when you need someone to call your own.